In today's video, we're going to see exactly how do we pre-handle objections. You have 11 gurus teaching you how to handle and overcome objections, and that's what I used to do. And I would go to bed with a headache. And when I discovered objection prevention, that's when my life changed, because I started pre-handling objections before they ever come up. By the way, this is Chris Rigoris. I produced more than 20 million in sales online, and I'll show you the exact formula I use to pre-handle 5 main objections today. We're going to start with the money objection. Now, there are 2 aspects when it comes to pre-handling the money objection. There's the fear of money, and then you have the logistical money objections. Let's start with the fear. When I'm talking about fear of money, is what you want to get ahead of is prospects that say, well, it's a big commitment right now. How do I know if this is going to work for me? I have never invested 10,000 myself before. This is the objection we need to get ahead of. And here's what we want to say. When I get a red flag in a sales call that says something like, well, I have never worked with a coach before, for example, I know that probably I'm going to get a money fear objection, which I will start saying things like, how come you haven't invested in yourself before? I might hear, well, I don't believe in investing in coaching, or they might say, I've always done it by myself. In these scenarios, I know that I'm dealing with a money fear objection, and I will say, may I make a suggestion here? You mentioned that you always did things yourself. Have you ever considered that this thinking, where you're always doing things yourself and never accepted help, do you feel that has held you back so far? And here they will say, yeah, I guess so. Now I will still challenge them and I will say, well, what do you feel you have missed out on because you have never invested in yourself? And now I'm looking for a number, I'm looking for a specific number of sales, I'm looking for hours, days, months, years. I'm looking for an amount of resources so they can tell themselves that, hey, I've missed out on all of these things. So that's how I get them to accept that they shouldn't be fearful of investing, but they should feel empowered of investing in themselves. Let's look at the logistics. The money logistics is very simple. They don't have the money to invest. But at the same time, I don't want to disqualify every single person I have a conversation with. So here's how I handle a money logistics objection when I pre-handle it. I will start asking questions like, by the way, I never asked, what do you do? When someone tells you what they do for a living, you can get an idea of their income to see can they invest in themselves or not. But the most important question you can ask, and the second way, is the moment you realize that someone might not be qualified to work with you money-wise, you'll ask them this. As you might understand, Chris, it does take an investment to get our help so we can hit your goals together. So what are you comfortable investing so you can get help? And now, depending on the amount that you get, you realize that, hey, I'm dealing with a problematic prospect. So I'm selling a $10,000 thing and they only have $3,000, which you can disqualify. You can also offer ahead of time options. So you can say, I know we haven't went through the offer yet and what we offer, but I just want to make sure that I'm respectful of your time. So assuming that we can help, are you able to be in collaboration together? Are you able to be resourceful in coming up with the money? Because it's not about the resources, it's about being resourceful. So what do you feel you can do to come up with the resources to do something like this? That's how you pre-handle money. Now, one of the toughest objections you have to pre-handle is the status quo. And you're probably watching this and you're like, what's the status quo objection? And this is where most sales go to die. It's not a money objection, it's not a fear objection, it's not a time objection. Most sales die because of the status quo objection. And the status quo objection is they prefer to stay exactly where they are instead of making a change. Like their fear of them making a change and it going wrong is more than the fear of staying exactly where they are. So that's the equation I need to control. And this is the exact question I'm asking to pre-handle the status quo objection. I will ask them early on in the call, like, when you reached out to us, like besides what we covered so far, what are you considering getting help now rather than just doubling down with what you're currently doing? I want you to think reverse psychology. If this is the prospect, I'm pushing and I'm challenging towards them. Let me tell you the question again. Besides what we covered so far, what's the main reason why you might be looking for help now rather than just doubling down with what you're currently doing? And now what the prospect is going to do? They're going to sell themselves on what I sell. They're going to tell themselves, well, I don't want to waste more time. I don't want to waste more money. I don't want to do it by myself when I have a proven solution just like you guys. And that's how we demolish the status objection. Then we move on to objection number 3, which is the partner objection. And as with every objection, there are 2 different parts. There's a B2B part and there's a B2C part. Now, how do we handle a B2B? B2B partner objection is tricky because the opportunity when it comes to the B2B is when someone has a board, when they are a non-profit, or where we have a big company, the board might get in the way of the sale. So it's not just a smokescreen. 90% of the scenarios in B2B, in B2C, it's a smokescreen objection. But in B2B, we have a challenge. And this is how we overcome the B2B partner objection and how we can get ahead of it. We ask things like, can I ask, are you the sole founder? Are you the only business owner? Or do you have partners? I ask this very, very early on, before my discovery starts. They hop on the call, I get the core reason why, hey, good to see you, how can I help? And they start telling me, oh, I have a startup that makes this big revenue. And I will ask them, oh, I didn't ask, are you the founder? Are you the CEO? Like, what's your role exactly? And do you have partners? So I can get an idea around who am I selling? Because if they have a board, if they have other co-founders, I'm selling all of them. It's a common decision that's going to come out of their entire company's budget. And then I will ask them this question. What's the typical decision-making process you guys take when it comes to decisions like these? And now I'm looking to discover, hey, before we make any big decisions around any programs, I need to speak to the board, I need to speak to my CFO. When things like this happen, you cannot make an offer then and there. What you will do is you will book another call, you will put together all the different people that are decision makers, you will sell them, and then once that happens, if they need to talk to a board, you're going to book a 3rd call. That's how the game is played in B2B. Let's talk about the B2C scenario. Now, in B2C, 90% of the partner objections are smokescreens. They're not real. Because when a person has a challenge and they hop on a sales call to solve it, chances are, number 1, the partner knows it, or number 2, the partner isn't involved in the decision. Most people give you the partner objection in B2C to get rid of you. It's a kind way of telling you no. So how do we get ahead of it? If you realize, for example, you're selling fitness and you're selling to moms, and the woman hops on the phone with you, you can ask her, can I ask, are you married or are you single right now, if I may ask? She can say, well, yeah, I'm married, 2 kids. Perfect. Does your husband know that we're having this call, or are we on a secret mission? And now she might say, well, my husband knows, or I haven't told my husband yet, I'm in early just looking around mode. And both are perfect, because I will lead with this next question. I will ask her, how does your husband feel about you wanting to lose that weight? And now, early on, we need to get her to sell herself on number one, the responsibility that she has around her body, and number two, being able to have that conversation with her husband if need be. So let's be clear, when it comes to the B2C, 90% of the partner objection are smoke screens. So if I'm able to get ahead of them, I won't have to deal with it on the back end of the calls. Now, let's look at the next objection, which is the time objection. Number 4. Now, when it comes to the time, you'll get this objection a lot when you're dealing with busy people. When you are in a B2B offer or you're selling to a higher quality avatar in B2C, you can get the time objection a lot. So there are two ways I want you to handle this, to pre-handle this. The first way to pre-handle this is making sure that they're making it a priority. How does that look like? Well, I will ask them early into discovery, before getting into any details of my offer, I will ask them questions like, and I'm sure, Chris, that you're a busy guy, what makes this a priority now? I can also ask, is this a now or a later thing to get help? And once they say yes, I'm going to double down and I will ask, why is it a now thing? What makes it a now thing? Because once I add these urgency triggers, I call them, they're able to sell themselves on why is this a priority. So number one is, how do we pre-handle the time objection, is making it a priority. Number two is, I need to ensure and ask them ahead of time, well, how much time are you willing to put into this? So this is the exact language I will use. As you might understand, Chris, it does take a time investment to work together to solve your challenges. So how much time can you put into something like this so you can get results? Now they might say, oh, I don't know, how much time do you want me to? I'm a busy guy. I don't know how much time I can invest, I can carve out. Now you will tell them. Well, typically for our clients, it takes 3 to 5 hours a week. And when they invest that, they're able to get outcomes and get results and hit their goals. But are you comfortable carving out that time so you can do this? And if I don't hear a loud, clear yes, I'm done. I'm going to disqualify them. I'm going to push them away to get them to sell me around why they should do it and why they will find the time. That's how you pre-handle the time objection. Because if you don't, on the back end, it's a very tough objection to convince them that, oh, well, you'll find the time, you'll make this a priority. If you do these two things ahead of time, you'll be able to demolish this objection. And last but not least, let's pre-handle the timing objection. Timing objection is very different than the time objection. The timing objection is when you hear things like, at the end of the call, they tell you, well, let me think about this, I have a lot on my plate. I don't know where I should fit this. It's a busy time for us, we'll make a decision next quarter. Or let me talk to my team, see if this is something that we can handle. All these objections are lack of one thing only. All these things are a lack of urgency. They may feel the pain, but they don't feel the pain of not changing their situation now. They want to fix it, but they want to fix it in the future. So how do we get ahead of it? We're going to use what I call nightmare questions. Nightmare questions are very simple. At the right time, once someone unveils their problem, I'm going to double down and I will ask them, but what happens if you don't fix this problem and you let it keep on for the next 2, 4, 6 months? Now what's going to happen? They're going to be aware of the consequences and the ramifications of them not making a change. That's the first way. The second way of getting ahead of the timing objection is doubling down on the priorities. So the biggest mistake I see a lot of sales reps make is, number one, they try to fix future pain, not present pain, And number two, they sell the future, but they don't sell the fix of the present. So it's super important to make sure that we know what pain point are we solving right now. When a prospect gives you very hazy, very vague answers like, oh, we just need more leads right now, that's a surface level $5 problem. Every monkey online can send them leads. What we need to do as trusted sales professionals is go a layer deeper and understand, yes, but you could use leads 5 years ago, you could use leads 2 years ago, you will use leads 5 years from now. Why are leads important to you now though? They're always important. And that's what everyone says. But for you, what challenge is happening right now in the business that makes you need more leads? Well, we have 5 closers, all of their calendars are empty. Now I can see the problem. This is one hack I want you to remember. If they can describe their pain point as if they're describing a movie scene, I know I've hit gold, because they're gonna create their own urgency and they're gonna make fixing this challenge a priority. So these are the 5 main objections that we want to pre-handle. I don't want you to use all of them in a sales call. What you will do is you will notice from your last 20 sales calls or your last 20 conversations, you will cherry pick which objection am I getting the most, and you will pick one of the 5 and you will insert one of the questions that I've given you. It's money, status quo, partner, time, or timing. This has been Chris Rigouris. If you've enjoyed this content, make sure to drop a like, and I'll see you on the next one.